Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. You've been loving these wild anonymous Reddit stories, and I've been loving bringing them to life for you. Today's confession, let's just say, it's the kind that grabs you from the first sentence and doesn't let go. If this is your kind of drama, betrayal, revenge, or just real people spilling jaw-dropping secrets, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Alright, no fluff, no filters, let's get into it. They made me marry a nobody. My mother smirked. It suits you. I grabbed the mic and told the truth. I'm Sophia Langley, 29, standing in a gown that costs more than a year's rent for most. It's emerald silk catching the ballroom's chandelier light as I clutch a microphone that feels like a weapon forged for this moment. 6 months ago, my family forced me into a marriage with Ethan Caldwell, a man they called dependable, to rein me in after a scandal they claimed I caused. It's where you belong after your reckless choices, my mother, Celeste, sneered during my wedding dress fitting, her manicured nails grazing my shoulder with deliberate precision, her eyes cold as she adjusted my veil. What they didn't know, what they could never have predicted, was that Ethan's unassuming exterior, his plain suits and modest car, hid a fortune and influence that dwarfed their own carefully curated empire. Tonight, at their meticulously orchestrated 40th anniversary gala, their world of polished facades and calculated control is about to implode. My childhood as Sophia Langley was a masterclass in privilege and pressure, a life scripted before I could speak. Our estate in Chicago's Gold Coast was a fortress of wealth, its ivy-covered limestone facade and manicured gardens a testament to the Langley legacy. My father, Victor Langley, had transformed a small logistics company into Langley Global, a titan in international shipping with warehouses spanning North America, Europe, and Asia. His office, a glass tower overlooking Lake Michigan, was as much a monument to his ambition as our home was to his success. My mother, Celeste, was the architect of our social empire, orchestrating our ascent into Chicago's elite with the precision of a chess grandmaster moving pieces across a board. Our home was a museum of affluence. A Bösendorfer piano dominated the parlor, its ebony finish reflecting the glow of Venetian crystal chandeliers, imported at a cost that could have funded a small startup. The dining room, where senators, CEOs, and foreign dignitaries gathered for my parents' annual New Year's gala, featured a mahogany table polished to a mirror sheen, set with heirloom silver and linens flown in from Florence. The foyer's marble floors echoed with the footsteps of Chicago's elite, and the library, lined with first-edition books, smelled of leather and old money. Every corner screamed power, every detail a calculated display of status. By age 8, I could recite Emily Post's etiquette rules, my voice steady as I memorized the placement of fish forks and dessert spoons. By 10, I navigated ballroom dances with the sons of industrialists, my steps flawless under Mother's watchful eye, her whispered corrections sharp as a blade. Chin up, Sophia. Langley women never falter. By 12, I understood the unspoken hierarchies of wealth, learning to read a room's power dynamics before I could drive. My wardrobe was a parade of bespoke dresses from Parisian ateliers, each stitch a testament to our status, tailored to fit not just my body, but the image Mother crafted. My skincare routine, curated by dermatologists flown in from Zurich, lined my bathroom counter in frosted glass bottles, their labels promising perfection. My calendar brimmed with violin lessons, debate club, and volunteer appearances timed for the society pages, each event photographed to reinforce the Langley brand. I was a living advertisement for their legacy, a polished prop in their narrative of success. My younger brother, Julian, 5 years my junior, trailed my path, idolizing me while collecting my hand-me-down confidence. At 15, he'd perch on my velvet ottoman, his lanky frame folded awkwardly, begging, "Teach me how to charm like you, Soph." He mimicked my polished phrases, practicing handshakes in my full-length mirror, but Mother's praise was a double-edged sword. She'd compliment my poise at a gala, her hand resting lightly on my shoulder, then turn to Julian with a sigh. If only you had her discipline. The next day, she'd reverse the dynamic, praising his diligence while noting my overconfidence, her words slicing with surgical cruelty. We were competitors more than siblings, pitted against each other in a silent rivalry. Though beneath our polished exteriors, we shared the scars of her manipulation, the weight of her expectations binding us in a strange, unspoken alliance. Mother's confidant, Beatrice Hargrove, was her enforcer, a socialite whose family's steel fortune granted her the authority to police our behavior. At galas, she'd glide to my side, her diamond earrings glinting like tiny daggers, her smile venomous as she catalogued my every move. "Sophia, darling," she'd purr, noting my conversation partners. "That young man's family is in retail, isn't it? How eclectic your circle has become." Her words, cloaked in sweetness, carried warnings I was expected to heed, her reports to Mother shaping my social boundaries. Until age 27, I played my role perfectly. Stanford undergrad with honors, Harvard MBA with a thesis on supply chain innovation, a corner office at Langley Crown, the crown jewel of Langley Global, waiting like a throne I was groomed to inherit. I dated men from approved families, bankers, lawyers, heirs with pedigrees, Mother vetted through her network of society matrons. I maintained the exact measurements she deemed refined, my weight monitored with the precision of a financial ledger, my workouts scheduled between boardroom briefings. I never questioned the script, performing flawlessly under the weight of expectation, my life a carefully choreographed performance. Then I dared to want something of my own. "I want to launch an eco-conscious tech startup," I told Father, presenting a 50-page proposal for Verdant Innovations, a company focused on sustainable urban solutions. I stood in his oak-paneled study, the Chicago skyline framed by floor-to-ceiling windows, my hands steady as I handed him the bound document. Chicago lacks scalable green infrastructure. I've identified a niche: modular green roofing systems with integrated solar panels. I've secured initial partners, a pilot site with a downtown developer, and projected profitability within 3 years. The market gap is clear, and the environmental impact could redefine urban development. Father barely glanced at the pages, his reading glasses slipping down his nose as he sipped his scotch, the ice clinking in his tumbler. "A startup?" he scoffed, his voice heavy with dismissal. "Sophia, we're in logistics, not experiments. Green roofs, that's a hobby, not a business. I'll fund it as a learning experience, but don't expect miracles." His condescension stung, a sharp reminder of my place in his empire. But I pushed forward, fueled by a vision that felt like mine alone, a spark of independence in a life dictated by their rules. For 6 months, Verdant Innovations thrived. Our prototype, a sleek system of interlocking panels that doubled as solar collectors, earned praise from urban planners and a feature in Fast Company titled The Future of Cities. My business partner, Lauren Mitchell, handled operations with efficiency, her spreadsheets meticulous, her updates crisp. I focused on vision, pitching to investors, building a network beyond the Langley orbit, and securing a contract for a pilot installation on a 30-story high-rise in Chicago's Loop. I felt alive, my days filled with purpose, my nights buzzing with ideas sketched on napkins at coffee shops. I imagined Verdant as my legacy, Proof I could build something without the Langley name. Then it all collapsed. One gray morning, our CFO called, his voice tight with panic. "The accounts are drained, Miss Langley. Lauren's gone and we owe $400,000 to suppliers for materials we never received." The betrayal was surgical. A knife slipped between ribs, leaving no visible wound but stealing my breath. Lauren had falsified records, siphoned funds through offshore accounts, and vanished without a trace. Her office cleared out, her phone disconnected. The Chicago Tribune ran a damning headline: "Langley heiress's startup implodes in financial scandal." Mother's social circle whispered behind martini glasses at luncheons, their pity laced with glee, their designer handbags shielding their smirks. Father's board members offered sympathetic nods at meetings, their eyes betraying judgment, their handshakes lingering a moment too long. The fallout was swift and merciless. "Your negligence has tarnished our name," Father roared at a family dinner, his fist denting the mahogany table, the crystal wine glasses trembling. "Did you even vet this woman, Sophia? Did you check her references, her history?" Mother's eyes gleamed with calculated disappointment, her voice low and venomous. "We trusted you with family resources. This reflects on our judgment, on the Langley legacy." They seized my Gold Coast condo, technically owned by Langley Global, froze my accounts, and moved me into a guest suite in the family estate. Its floral wallpaper faded, its bed creaking under my weight. My Tesla was replaced with a used Subaru, its paint chipped, its engine coughing. "Suitable for someone learning accountability," Mother declared, her lips curling as she handed me the keys. Every family event became a stage for my humiliation, with pointed references to my failure and comparisons to Julian's steady progress as Father's protege at Langley Global. "Julian understands his role," Mother would say, her gaze sliding to me. "He doesn't chase fanciful dreams." I applied to 42 jobs, startups, consultancies, even nonprofits, only to face rejections tied to my family's influence. Emails went unanswered, interviews were canceled last minute, and recruiters cited fit issues with vague apologies. Doors that once swung open now slammed shut, their hinges greased by Langley connections. My identity as a driven, capable woman dissolved into a cautionary tale, a punchline at country club brunches, my name whispered alongside words like disgrace and overreached. 5 months of isolation followed, each day eroding my confidence like waves wearing down stone. My designer wardrobe gathered dust in storage, replaced by appropriate thrift store finds Mother selected, their muted grays and beiges a visual demotion. I wore cardigans that itched, skirts that hung awkwardly, shoes that pinched with every step. My mornings, once filled with strategy meetings, now involved folding laundry or polishing silver for Mother's next gala, tasks designed to remind me of my place. The worst wasn't the material loss or the social exile, it was the erosion of self. The confident woman I'd been replaced by a shadow who doubted her every choice. The intervention came on a rainy Tuesday evening in March, the estate's library heavy with the scent of leather and bourbon. Father sat in his wingback chair, his face flushed, his tie loosened. Mother perched beside him, her posture rigid, her navy dress immaculate, her expression cold as the marble bust of some long-dead Langley on the mantel. A man in a plain gray suit stood by the fireplace, his presence unremarkable yet ominous, like a storm cloud on a clear day. "Sophia, sit," Father commanded, his tone heavy with finality, his glass empty on the side table. "Your recklessness has consequences. We've found a solution." The man stepped forward, extending a hand I didn't take. "Ethan Caldwell," he introduced himself, his handshake firm but his appearance forgettable. Average build, brown hair, off-the-rack suit, a watch that wasn't Rolex or Patek. Nothing suggested ambition or distinction, only a bland reliability. "This is absurd," I protested, my voice shaking, my hands clenched in my lap. "Marrying a stranger because of one setback. This isn't the 1800s. Mother's voice was ice, cutting through the room's heavy silence. "Ethan has agreed to this. Despite your tarnished reputation, you'll receive a modest apartment and an entry-level role at Langley Global. Refuse, and you leave with nothing. No name, no support, no references. You'll be cut off entirely." Father's health was leveraged as guilt, Mother's hand resting on his arm as she added, "Your stress is killing him, Sophia. His heart can't take much more. Do you want that on your conscience?" I fled to Julian's room, collapsing onto his leather sofa, the city lights glinting through his window. My brother, now 24 and navigating his own cage as father's deputy, twisted his cufflinks nervously, his face pale. "They've been planning this for months," he admitted, his voice low, glancing at the door as if expecting Mother's shadow. "It's not just about punishing you, it's about rewriting the story. Marry Ethan, take a lowly job, and they spin it as your redemption, the wayward daughter brought to heel. They've already drafted the press release. Ethan, a supposed mid-level analyst at a small financial firm, was stable, Mother said, forgettable enough not to eclipse our family's shine, but respectable enough to fit the narrative. I met him 3 days later for an arranged dinner at a mid-range bistro in a gentrifying neighborhood. Its exposed brick walls and Edison bulbs a far cry from the Michelin-starred restaurants of my past. He arrived in a Ford Focus, its bumper scuffed, his suit the same uninspired gray from our first encounter. His apartment, a second-floor walk-up with a flickering hallway light, was functional. Beige furniture, a modest bookshelf with history texts and worn paperbacks, a coffee table with a single coaster. No art, no personality, just a space that felt like a waiting room. "This isn't ideal," he admitted, watching me survey his sparse living room, his tone unfazed by my skepticism. "But we can make it work?" His practicality bordered on indifference, a stark contrast to the polished suitors who'd once courted me with private jets and penthouse dinners. "What's in this for you?" I demanded, searching his plain features for answers, my arms crossed. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed, and he excused himself to a locked office, his muffled voice sharp and authoritative, discussing acquisition terms and market positioning, with a confidence that didn't match his department store tie. The disconnect sparked my suspicion, a nagging question I couldn't shake. Desperate for an escape, I arranged a secret meeting with Nathan Wells, my ex from Stanford, now a rising star at a Chicago hedge fund. We met at a dive bar in Wicker Park, far from my parents' social radar, its sticky tables and neon signs a world away from our Gold Coast haunts. Nathan looked as polished as ever, his Rolex glinting as he stirred his whiskey, his custom suit crisp despite the late hour. "This marriage is madness, Soph," he said after I explained my situation, his voice smooth, but his eyes calculating. "They're using your dad's heart condition to trap you. It's emotional blackmail." I nodded, my throat tight, my hands wrapped around an untouched gin and tonic. "They've left me no choice. Every job I apply for, every contact I reach out to, it's like I'm blacklisted." Nathan hesitated, swirling his drink, then leaned forward, his tone shifting to something formal, transactional. "What if you had another option? I could propose, your family approved of me once, before all this. My firm could use Langley connections to expand our portfolio in logistics. We were good together, Soph. This could be a win for both of us. His proposal wasn't love, it was a merger, my family's name a bargaining chip for his career. I left the bar, my heels pinching as I walked 6 blocks through Chicago's drizzle, the realization crystallizing. Even those who once cared saw me as damaged goods, a discounted asset to be acquired for their gain. My value had always been tied to the Langley name, and without it, I was a liability, a bargain to be snapped up. The final blow came during my wedding dress fitting at a boutique Mother selected, its sterile white walls and minimalist racks a far cry from the Parisian salons of my youth. She'd chosen an understated ivory sheath, nothing like the couture fantasies I'd once imagined. Ethan Caldwell is making a sacrifice, accepting you with your history, she remarked, directing the seamstress to adjust the hem, her voice dripping with false concern. This match is where you belong now. Be grateful anyone would have you. I caught my reflection in the 3-way mirror, a stranger, trapped in a sensible dress, fading into the role they'd scripted. My dark hair, pulled into a low bun, looked severe, my eyes hollow despite the makeup. The wedding day dawned with cruelly perfect weather. The estate's rose garden transformed into a stage for Mother's tasteful ceremony, scaled down from the lavish spectacle she'd once planned for her golden daughter. Nothing too grand, given your circumstances, she told the planner within my hearing, her voice laced with performative regret. The makeup artist concealed my sleepless eyes with layers of concealer. The hairstylist pinned my hair into a conservative chignon, and the ivory sheath hung on my frame, its simplicity a public demotion. You look appropriate, Mother assessed, adjusting my pearl earrings, her choice of suitable jewelry for my reduced status. Father walked me down the aisle, his grip more restraining than supportive, his cologne sharp in my nose. The 60 guests, paired from the 400 Mother once envisioned, watched with expressions ranging from pity to thinly veiled disdain. Beatrice Hargrove dabbed theatrical tears, whispering to her seatmate, her diamond choker glittering like a collar. My Stanford roommate, Claire, sent a vague excuse about a scheduling conflict, though her Instagram showed her skiing in Aspen that weekend. Even the pastor's homily, heavy with references to humility and accepting one's place, felt like another jab, his words chosen to reinforce my fall. Ethan waited at the altar, surprisingly composed in a suit marginally better than his usual attire, his brown eyes steady as I approached. When I reached him, he squeezed my hand gently, whispering, "You're stronger than this." His words a fleeting anchor in the surreal scene, a moment of unexpected humanity. The reception was a blur of condescending toasts and backhanded compliments. "Marriage will ground you," Beatrice's sister declared, patting my arm like a child, her rings cold against my skin. Some women aren't cut out for business. Ethan's guests, only 6, clustered at a corner table, stood out in their simplicity. Unlike the designer-clad elite, they wore quality but unflashy clothing, their eyes sharp with curiosity, their conversations quiet but intense. A woman in her 50s, with silver-flecked auburn hair and a tailored blazer, raised her glass to me in a private toast that felt more genuine than the room's hollow applause, her smile warm in a sea of judgment. Our wedding gifts reflected my fall, practical appliances like blenders and toasters, modest decor like ceramic vases, a stark contrast to the luxury registries of my cousins' weddings. Baccarat crystal, Hermes linens. Mother's centerpiece, presented with a theatrical flourish, was a deed to a starter condo in a gentrifying neighborhood and contracts for clerical roles at Langley Global. Entry-level positions, suitable for your capabilities, Father explained, his voice heavy with emphasis on my demotion, his smile tight as he handed me the folder. We departed in Ethan's Ford Focus, its engine sputtering, not the vintage Bentley reserved for Langley weddings, headed for a weekend at a quaint inn in Wisconsin. Not the Maldives honeymoon I'd once dreamed of as a girl sketching dresses in my diary. Our new condo, on the third floor of a converted warehouse, was a beige wasteland. 2 bedrooms, a basic kitchen with linoleum floors, flickering fluorescent lights, and furniture Mother selected for its inoffensive neutrality. Think IKEA rejects in shades of oatmeal and taupe. The master bedroom featured twin beds. "For when you're ready," she'd said with a delicate pause, her implication clear. "Home sweet home," Ethan remarked, setting down our luggage in the living room, his tone devoid of irony, his hands steady as he adjusted a crooked lamp. "It's a cage," I snapped, surveying the popcorn ceilings and the view of a brick wall across the alley. The next morning, I faced my new reality, learning to operate a coffee maker, its buttons baffling me after years of barista deliveries, deciphering cleaning products, their labels a foreign language, discovering groceries didn't magically appear in the fridge as they had in my old life. Ethan observed my domestic floundering with disarming patience, his movements calm as he chopped vegetables for a stir-fry. "I can show you how to budget for groceries," he offered after finding me staring into an empty fridge, my hands trembling with frustration. "Why aren't you angry?" I demanded, gesturing at our modest surroundings, the chipped mugs, the second-hand couch. "You're stuck with me in this." He shrugged, his eyes steady, a hint of something unreadable in his expression. "I've had less and chosen this." His cryptic words hung between us, unanswered, like a puzzle piece I couldn't place. At Langley Global, my role as an administrative assistant was a deliberate humiliation, involving fetching coffee, filing reports, and enduring Karen, my supervisor and a loyalist to Father, who corrected me with smug satisfaction. "File by client, not date, Sophia," she'd say, her pen tapping the desk. "Even new hires know that." My days, once filled with boardroom strategy, now revolved around photocopiers and spreadsheets, my Harvard MBA reduced to a footnote. Ethan's routine was odder. Early departures at 6 a.m., late returns past 9 p.m., and weekend meetings that didn't align with his supposed junior analyst role at a small firm called Meridian Partners. His locked home office, a narrow room with a single window, echoed with calls in a voice far more commanding than his unassuming demeanor suggested. Phrases like "leverage the portfolio" and "finalize the merger" drifting through the door. My curiosity grew, tinged with suspicion. Why would this ordinary man, with his scuffed shoes and generic ties, agree to marry a disgraced heiress? What happened in those locked-room calls, conducted in tones that carried the weight of boardrooms, not cubicles? One evening, Julian visited, bringing a bottle of Merlot and genuine concern, his tie loosened after a long day at Langley Global. "This place isn't terrible," he said, exploring the condo with interest, running his fingers along the chipped countertop, unlike Mother's barely concealed disgust during her obligatory tour. "It has character, Soph. It has plumbing issues and a view of a dumpster," I corrected, pouring generous glasses, the wine's warmth a small comfort. "Ethan seems decent," he ventured, his voice cautious. Not what I expected, quietly sharp, like Dad before the Empire took over his soul. We ordered Thai takeout, the scent of lemongrass filling the small kitchen, and Ethan's humor surfaced when a bookshelf I assembled collapsed, screws scattering across the linoleum. "That's what we call a structural disaster," he quipped, his deadpan delivery startling a laugh from me, my first in months, the sound foreign in my throat. After Julian left, Ethan and I shared a moment of unexpected ease over fortune cookies, their generic predictions oddly grounding. "Thanks for being kind to my brother," I said, surprised by my sincerity, the words spilling out. "He's caught in their crossfire, trying to please them while they tighten the screws." Ethan cracked his cookie, his eyes thoughtful. "Julian sees you clearer than your parents do. He admires your strength, even if you don't see it yet." That night, something shifted. Not love, but the seed of respect, a fragile thread connecting us. I still slept in my twin bed, the mattress creaking under my weight. Still wondered about his mysterious calls, still resented my circumstances, but I began to see Ethan as a person, not a punishment. 6 weeks into our marriage, I awoke at 2 a.m. to find his bed empty, the sheets cold. His late-night calls weren't unusual, but after a humiliating day at Langley Global, Karen had accidentally spilled coffee on my reports, smirking as I blotted the pages. I followed the sound of his voice to his office. The door, usually locked, was ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the hall. Inside, dual monitors glowed with financial charts. A Bloomberg terminal hummed, its screen dense with data, and shelves held advanced economics texts, not the history paperbacks I'd seen in his living room. Ethan, in tailored slacks and a crisp shirt, spoke into a headset. "Close the Tokyo deal by dawn. Legal, finalize the contracts. Keep the press generic. Growth, synergy, no specifics." His voice carried authority, his posture confident, a stark contrast to the bland analyst he'd presented. He turned, saw me frozen in the doorway, and ended the call with calm precision, removing his headset. "You're not an analyst," I stated, my voice flat, my arms crossed to steady myself. He didn't flinch. "No, I'm not." He handed me a Forbes article from 2 years prior, its headline bold, "Crestview Capital's Shadow Titan." It profiled a reclusive billionaire leading Crestview, a $5.8 billion private equity firm known for outpacing Wall Street giants through strategic acquisitions and tech investments. "Your EC," I whispered, recognizing Ethan Caldwell as Crestview's CEO, his initials a whisper in finance circles. "Why hide it? Why marry me?" He gestured to a chair across his desk, its leather worn but sturdy. "I grew up in a Cleveland suburb, raised by a single mother who worked nights as a nurse. I bussed tables to afford college, built Crestview from a laptop algorithm in my dorm room. Privacy lets me live authentically, away from the vultures who chase wealth. Investors, sycophants, journalists. Your family's deal was a chance to study Langley Global before a potential acquisition. Theodore Grant, your father's attorney, pitched the marriage as a discreet way to assess your family's operations, their vulnerabilities." I bristled, my hands clenching the chair's arms. "So I was corporate espionage, a pawn in your due diligence?" His eyes softened, a flicker of something human breaking through his composed facade. "Initially, but I saw something else, your resilience. You didn't break when they stripped everything away. Your failure wasn't incompetence, it was sabotage." He pulled up documents on his monitor. Lauren Mitchell, my ex-partner, had 4 prior aliases: Lydia Moore, Leah Carson, Laura Chandler, Lisa Crane, each tied to fraud schemes targeting wealthy families. Banking records showed transfers from Mother's charitable foundation, the Celeste Langley Trust, to Lauren's shell companies, timed weeks before she approached me with her polished pitch. Father's deputy, Richard Voss, had orchestrated her vetting, ensuring her criminal record was buried. "Your mother funded the collapse," Ethan said, his voice steady, his finger tracing the money trail on the screen. "Control, not your mistakes, killed Verdant." The betrayal hit like a physical blow, my breath catching, my vision blurring as I stared at the evidence. Dates, amounts, emails. "Why wait to tell me?" I demanded, my voice cracking, tears burning my eyes. "You needed strength first," he replied, his tone gentle but firm. "Knowledge without power is just pain. I wanted you to rebuild your confidence, to see your own worth before facing this truth." I pressed my fingers to my temples, the room tilting as I processed the betrayal. My parents hadn't just punished me, they'd engineered my fall, orchestrating a public humiliation to keep me under their thumb. "What do I do with this?" I whispered, my voice barely audible, the weight of their deception crushing. Ethan leaned forward, his gaze intense, his hands clasped on the desk. "That depends on what you want. Revenge, freedom, reconciliation, or something else entirely. For the first time, it's your choice." His words, simple and unadorned, were a lifeline. The first time in my adult life someone asked what I wanted, not what was expected of a Langley. "I want justice," I said, my voice hardening, a fire igniting in my chest. "And I want my life back, not their version, not the gilded cage, but something mine, built on truth, not their lies." He nodded, a spark of respect in his eyes. "I can help if you let me." "Why would you?" I pressed, searching his face for motives. His expression held a flicker of vulnerability, a crack in his billionaire armor. "Because I see you, Sophia. Not the Langley heiress, not the scandal headline, but the woman who kept fighting when everything was stripped away. That's worth more than any deal, any acquisition." His words, raw and unguarded, planted a seed of trust, fragile but real. That night, we pushed the twin beds together, not for intimacy but for solidarity, lying in the dark, dismantling the facades we'd both worn. He shared his story. A childhood in a Cleveland apartment with peeling paint, a mother who worked double shifts, scholarships that barely covered tuition, an algorithm coded on a second-hand laptop that became Crestview's foundation. I confessed my own truths. A childhood of conditional love, where every achievement was a transaction, every rebellion swiftly punished. The suffocating expectations that shaped me into a perfect daughter but left me hollow. The passion for sustainable innovation my parents dismissed as unserious, a whim unfit for their empire. "I never wanted their logistics dynasty," I admitted, my voice soft in the darkness. "I wanted to create something meaningful, something that mattered beyond their name." "You still can," Ethan said, his hand brushing mine, a quiet promise. "And I'll help you clear your name." Our partnership began with education, a crash course in reclaiming my power. Ethan cleared his schedule for 2 weeks, transforming our beige living room into a command center. Whiteboards replaced generic art, their surfaces soon covered in timelines and financial maps. Dossiers piled on the coffee table, their pages dense with data, and takeout containers from Chicago's best restaurants. Giordano's Pizza, Elinea's Molecular Gastronomy, fueled late-night strategy sessions, the scent of truffle oil mingling with printer ink. Ethan introduced me to Clara Evans, the silver-haired woman from our wedding, Crestview's chief strategic officer and his mentor, her auburn hair pulled into a sleek bun, her eyes sharp with decades of corporate intelligence. "Your business model was sound," Clara said, reviewing Verdant's original projections, her pen tapping the pages. "Your instincts for green tech were ahead of the curve. Modular systems, scalable, with a clear market gap. With proper backing and operations, you'd have been profitable in 18 months. Her validation, professional and unemotional, healed a wound I hadn't acknowledged, a raw ache from months of self-doubt. Ethan taught me financial forensics, guiding me through balance sheets, market dynamics, and fraud patterns, his patience unwavering as I stumbled over terms like derivatives, and offshore structuring. Each lesson rebuilt my confidence, brick by brick, replacing the self-doubt my parents had cultivated. Clara assigned exercises, analyzing financial statements for red flags, spotting manipulation in corporate emails, drafting business proposals with airtight projections. "You have a natural aptitude," she noted after I identified flaws in a sample merger plan, my analysis catching a hidden liability. "You just needed the tools to harness it, the knowledge they denied you." Our investigation into Lauren revealed a career con artist who targeted wealthy families, her playbook chillingly consistent. Her aliases, Lydia Moore, Leah Carson, Laura Chandler, Lisa Crane, followed a pattern. Gain trust with a polished persona, secure funds through charm, disappear with the capital. "She never should have passed vetting," Ethan said, displaying her fraud convictions, buried in obscure court records. Someone deliberately concealed her history. That someone was Richard Voss, father's fixer for 3 decades, a man whose loyalty to Langley Global was matched only by his willingness to handle its dirtiest work. Emails showed him recruiting Lauren, ensuring her background appeared clean, even coaching her on how to pitch me. Mother's Foundation, the Celeste Langley Trust, had funneled $200,000 to Lauren's shell companies weeks before she approached me with her glossy proposal, and another $150,000 after she vanished. A payoff for her silence. "They created the perfect storm," Clara explained, her voice calm but her eyes blazing as she pinned a chart to the whiteboard. "Your success threatened their control. An independent daughter, building her own network, her own legacy, was a risk to their carefully curated dynasty. They needed you humbled, dependent, back in their orbit." Each revelation hardened my resolve, my anger sharpening into purpose. "Why go to such lengths?" I asked during a late-night session, staring at a whiteboard mapping their scheme, the lines converging like a spider's web. "Control through humiliation," Ethan replied, his voice low, his marker pausing. "They discredited you publicly, justified their intervention, and ensured you doubt yourself so thoroughly that their rescue, this marriage, this job, seemed like mercy, not punishment." The perfect stage for our counterstrike arrived when Mother's assistant called, her voice clipped through the phone's static. "Mr. and Mrs. Langley request your presence at their 40th anniversary gala at the Drake Hotel. Black tie, 7 p.m., Grand Ballroom, don't be late." The gala was a glittering showcase of their legacy, a chance to parade their success before Chicago's elite. Ethan mobilized with military precision, inviting Crestview executives to mingle with Langley's allies, securing control of the venue's AV system through a discreet contact, compiling evidence into a presentation impossible to dismiss. Bank records, emails, Lauren's aliases, all cross-referenced and verified. Clara coached me to stay composed under attack, running simulations where she played mother, interrupting with venomous deflections. "You're being dramatic, Sophia," or "This is ungrateful nonsense." "They'll call you unstable or delusional," she warned, her voice firm as we practiced in the condo's cramped dining area. "Stay factual, calm, unassailable. Let the evidence speak." Ethan's security chief, Marcus Tate, a former military intelligence officer with a shaved head and a no-nonsense demeanor, taught me to counter manipulation tactics, predicting Mother's interruptions and Father's health ploys. "Your father will clutch his chest the moment you gain traction," Marcus said, his arms crossed. "Have a response ready, calm, not cold." I prepared psychologically, choosing a forest green gown by Elena Torres, a local designer I'd met before my fall, her small atelier a haven of creativity. "This isn't just a dress," Elena said during the final fitting. her hands steady as she pinned the hem, the silk flowing like liquid armor. It's a statement, built to make you feel unstoppable. The gown's architectural lines and bold color defied Mother's muted palette, a rebellion woven into every seam. I reconnected with Julian, meeting him at a quiet cafe in Logan Square, far from our parents' surveillance, its mismatched chairs and folk music a safe haven. He arrived in a tailored blazer, his tie loosened, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. "Mom's been worse since you left," he confided, stirring his espresso, his voice low. "She's turned her control on me, criticizing my work, my clothes, even my friends. Last week, she replaced my entire wardrobe because my shirts were too modern." I shared the truth about my sabotage, watching his face pale as I described Lauren's aliases and Mother's payments. "I suspected something," he admitted, his hands tightening around his cup. "I overheard Richard and Dad discussing a payment to Lauren, arguing about the amount. Then I found her old photos in Mother's foundation files. Different names, different looks, tucked in a folder marked Charity Grants. I wanted to tell you, but Mother monitors my calls, my emails. I've been waiting for a chance to talk alone." His fear, his loyalty, broke my heart, reminding me of the boy who'd once followed me through the estate's gardens, trusting me to lead. We planned his role, a neutral witness, safe from retaliation but positioned to observe, his presence a quiet signal of alliance. "I'm with you," he said, squeezing my hand. "Whatever you do, I'll back you." The night before the gala, Ethan and I reviewed our plan in the condo's dim light, the city's skyline a faint glow through the window. Evidence was loaded onto a secure drive, contingencies mapped for every scenario, Mother's interruptions, Father's health claims, even a potential power cut to the AV system. "Are you sure?" Ethan asked, his voice soft, his hand resting on the table between us. "This will change everything. Your family, your future, maybe even Chicago's perception of the Langleys." I met his gaze, my resolve steel. "What future?" "One built on lies and control. I'm done preserving their myth. I want relationships based on truth, even if it means having fewer of them." He reached for my hand, his touch steady, his eyes holding a warmth I hadn't noticed before. "This started as a business deal for me, a way to get inside Langley Global," he said, his voice raw. "But it's become more. You've shown more courage, more integrity than anyone I've known. Whatever happens tomorrow, I'm with you." His words, unguarded, solidified our alliance, a partnership born of necessity but growing into something deeper. The Drake's grand ballroom glittered with gold accents, white orchids cascading from crystal vases, and curated photos of my parents' 40-year ascent displayed on illuminated panels. Victor and Celeste at their wedding, at ribbon cuttings, shaking hands with governors. We arrived 15 minutes late in Ethan's hidden Maserati, its engine purring, my gown drawing gasps among the sea of safe blacks and navies. Ethan, in a tailored tuxedo that whispered wealth, exuded quiet confidence, his hand light on my arm. Mother's smile faltered as she registered my defiance, her ice blue couture flawless but her eyes narrowing. Father's gaze lingered on Ethan's limited edition watch, a detail he'd missed in the unremarkable analyst. "How generous," Mother said of our donation to a children's charity, her voice probing as she glanced at the check's amount through the envelope's window. "I've found my calling," Ethan replied, his tone deliberately vague, a smile playing at his lips. Richard Voss's toast lauded Langley integrity, his words polished but hollow, glossing over my erasure as if I'd never existed. Mother took the mic, her voice dripping with rehearsed warmth, her hands steady as she gripped the stand. Family is our foundation, she said, her eyes finding me in the crowd, a silent warning. Even through challenges, we guide each other back to our values, stronger for it. The applause was polite, the crowd nodding at the familiar narrative of Langley perfection. I stepped forward, taking the microphone from her hand, my heart steady despite the spotlight's glare. "Thank you, Mother, for this moment," I began, scanning the crowd, socialites in glittering gowns, executives in bespoke suits, family who'd accepted my disgrace without question. Tonight celebrates 40 years of Langley values, integrity, support, excellence. I paused, letting anticipation build, the room's murmur fading. But I learned what happens when control trumps those values. The screens lit up with Lauren's aliases, Mother's payments, Richard's emails orchestrating my downfall. Gasps rippled as I detailed the sabotage, my voice unwavering, each word practiced with Clara's guidance. My startup didn't fail because of incompetence. It was engineered to collapse, funded by my mother's foundation, coordinated by my father's deputy, designed to discredit me and justify unprecedented control. Ethan joined me, revealing himself as Crestview's CEO, his $5.8 billion empire dwarfing Langley Global, his presence commanding as he stood beside me. The crowd reeled, glasses clinking as hands trembled. Mother interrupted, her voice shrill. "This is absurd, Sophia. You've been manipulated," I countered, calm but firm. "This is evidence, Mother, verified and undeniable." Father rose, his face flushed, clutching his chest in a familiar ploy. "Two Crestview cardiologists are here, Victor," Ethan said smoothly, gesturing to two men in the crowd, their presence a quiet checkmate. The screens showed Verdant's original plan, validated by top consultants, its projections sound, its vision viable. "My business didn't fail because I was unfit," I said, my voice carrying to the room's edges. "It failed because my independence threatened a dynasty built on control, not support." Julian stood by me, his presence a silent rebuke, his navy suit and subtle statement cufflinks a nod to his own rebellion. As security escorted Lauren out, her panicked confessions to Marcus implicating Richard, the Langley myth shattered, the crowd's whispers rising to a roar. Beatrice Hargroves, good heavens, cut through the silence, her champagne glass nearly slipping. The Chicago Tribune dubbed it the Langley Reckoning. The headline splashed across Sunday's front page. Father faced regulatory scrutiny, with the SEC requesting records of Richard's transactions. 3 board members called for emergency meetings, their emails hinting at succession planning. Corporate code for ousting father. Mother lost 2 charity board seats, her social empire crumbling as invitations dried up. Julian escaped to a loft in Fulton Market, securing a role at a sustainable design firm, his passion for architecture finally free from Langley's script. Ethan and I moved to his lakefront penthouse, a space of understated luxury. Custom bookshelves packed with philosophy, economics, and vintage sci-fi. A chef's kitchen where he cooked risotto with startling skill. Floor-to-ceiling windows framing Lake Michigan's expanse. "I've owned this for 5 years but rarely stayed," he said, setting my suitcase by a leather armchair. "It was too empty without the right person. It needed you to feel like home." Our marriage, born of strategy, grew into trust, then affection. Our mornings filled with coffee and quiet conversations, our nights with shared dreams. We declined their reconciliation contract, a sterile 10-page document framing their actions as misunderstandings, choosing authenticity over their scripted truce. Verdant relaunched with Crestview's backing, focusing on green tech, solar-integrated urban systems, now with a new incubator for emerging innovators. Elena joined as COO, her design expertise and industry contacts fueling our growth. We secured a prime location 3 blocks from my original site, a symbolic reclaiming of my territory. At our private vow renewal, held on the penthouse's rooftop garden, 25 true allies, Julian, Clara, Marcus, Elena, witnessed our commitment to a chosen future, not an arranged one. My gown, a simple ivory silk by Elena, was a nod to our real beginning. My parents attended, a tentative step toward truth. Their presence without demands a small victory. Father approached Ethan, his questions about Crestview's sustainable investments genuine, a crack in his armor. Mother, in muted beige, offered a stiff compliment. The ceremony was tasteful. It was enough for now. A year later, we celebrated our anniversary at our favorite Wicker Park Bistro, its mismatched tables a reminder of our modest start. We exchanged truths, not gifts. I never expected happiness from this, I admitted, my hand in his. I hoped for survival. You gave me a partner? He smiled, his thumb tracing my knuckles. I planned a strategic alliance. I never expected to need someone, to want to be known. The condo became Julian's first home, our gift to his independence, its beige walls now painted with his bold designs. Verdant flourished, its incubator nurturing new talent, its pilot projects adopted by 3 cities. My parents and I navigated a fragile truce, defined by boundaries, not control, our conversations careful but honest. Therapy with Dr. Ellis, a specialist in family trauma, helped me grieve the family I'd idealized and accept the one I had, their love conditional, but my worth absolute. The cage they built became my foundation for freedom, their attempt to break me forging a strength I didn't know I had. Ethan, chosen to humble me, became my strongest ally, his quiet belief in me a mirror for my own resilience. Sometimes the circumstances designed to crush us, scandals, betrayals, forced choices, become the scaffolding for something authentic, something unbreakable. Have you found strength in your lowest moment? Has someone's attempt to control you led to unexpected freedom? Share your story below. And if this tale of reclaiming my truth resonated, hit that like and subscribe for more stories of resilience. Thank you for joining me on this journey. May you find the courage to claim your own narrative, whatever unexpected form it takes.